Hello everyone and welcome back to Dr. Wasif Academy. In chapter 3, we have mastered cellular transport, breaking down exactly how molecules move in and out of cells through the process of diffusion. Okay, diffusion, which is the net movement of particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration. Okay. Then we discussed about the process of osmosis, which is a special way that how water molecules move across a partially permeable membrane with the concept of water potential mechanics. And lastly, we have understood the concept of active transport, where we discussed about how solutes move through cells against concentration gradient utilizing ATP as energy currency, and this process also requires special carrier proteins. Now that the theory is complete, this we have completed this lecture. This is time to put your knowledge to the test. Today's session is a comprehensive Q&A designed to mirror your final exams. We will be tackling a variety of MCQs, matching columns, and conceptual questions to ensure your exam ready. Before we jump in, make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on the bell icon to join our growing community here at this channel to stay updated with every lesson and exam tips and tricks, which will be very helpful for you getting higher marks. So are you ready? Let's get started with our first set of questions. Definitely, I shall give you the answers of this question, but it will be very highly preferable that before the explanation of that question and before you wait for my answer, try to give your answer in the comments section. First of all, we shall start with MCQs. The first question is, which process involves the movement of molecules down a concentration gradient because of their random movement? Okay. Here, before answering the question, understand the concept that down a concentration gradient. Okay, if you have recalled, understood the concept of movement of molecules, then you can easily answer this question. Okay, the answer is C, that is diffusion, because diffusion is the net movement of particles from a region of higher concentration to a region of lower concentration down a concentration gradient as a result of their random movement. The next question is, which of the following molecules can pass through a cell membrane most easily by simple diffusion? Okay, remember this word, simple diffusion, and molecules can pass. Okay, which molecules can pass? Glucose, oxygen, starch, or proteins. Now you can see that glucose, starch, and proteins, these are larger molecules. Okay, they require special mechanism to pass through a cell membrane. Okay, but the answer is here oxygen, B, because this is a small non-polar molecule, and small non-polar molecules like oxygen and carbon dioxide, they can easily slip between the phospholipids of the cell membrane easily. So but larger molecules like glucose or starch and proteins, they are too big. Okay, they require a transport protein. The third question is, if the temperature of a solution increases, what happens to the rate of diffusion? Okay, here you should recall the concept of factors affecting the rate of diffusion. Okay, if you understood the concept of factors which are affecting the rate of diffusion, you can answer it as D. Okay, because high temperature give particles more kinetic energy, and this causes them to move and collide faster, which increases the overall rate of diffusion. The fourth question is, what provides the energy for the process of diffusion? Okay, that means if there is a process of diffusion, then how that happens? The answer is C, that is kinetic energy of molecules, because Unlike active transport that requires ATP, diffusion is a passive transport. It relies entirely on the natural kinetic energy that all atoms and molecules possess. Next question is, which cellular structure is specially designed to increase surface area for faster diffusion in the small intestine? I have clearly explained you about the concept of surface area to volume ratio. Okay. Recalling that chapter, you can answer the question of this question is that is B. That is microvilli. Okay, these are tiny finger-like projections on the surface of the cells lining the small intestine, and they significantly increase the surface area available for the absorption of nutrients via diffusion and active transport. The next question is, plant cells become turgid when water leaves the vacuole, water enters the vacuole and presses against the cell wall. Okay, to answer this question, recall the chapter topic of turgid pressure, okay, or turgor pressure. Then you can answer that is B. Okay, water enters the vacuole and presses against this cell wall, because in a dilute solution which will have a higher water potential, dilute solution means less amount of solutes. If there is less amount of solutes, then definitely the water potential will be higher. So in a dilute solution where water potential is high, water enters the plant cell through the process of osmosis, and then the vacuole swells and pushes the cytoplasm against the rigid cell wall. That creates turgor pressure, which keeps the plant upright. Next question is, why do plants wilt? Here again the concept of turgor pressure. Okay, that why do plants wilt? The answer is C, because wilting occurs when plants lose more water than they take in. So as water leaves the vacuoles, turgor pressure drops, the cell become flaccid and they can no longer support the plant's weight. So here the answer is C. This is the answer. The next one is, active transport moves substances. How that happens? Down a concentration gradient, from a high to low concentration, against a concentration gradient, and without using any cellular energy. This is quite easy for you. I'm very hopeful that you have given the answer in the comment section. The answer is C, because active transport always happens from against a concentration gradient, because this is the movement of particles from an area of lower concentration to an area of higher concentration, and because this is uphill movement, it requires energy in the form of ATP. Okay, no doubt this is not the part of this question, but you will understand, you should understand this concept. Okay, that active transport is the movement of molecules from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. Okay, and it requires energy in the form of ATP. The next one is, when red blood cells are placed in a concentrated salt solution. Okay, concentrated salt solution, what will they become? They will become turgid, hemolyzed, cyanated, or rehydrated. The answer is C, because a concentrated salt solution has a lower water potential. More amount of solutes, water potential will also be lower. Okay, more solutes, less water potential. So a concentrated solution, salt solution, has a lower water potential than the red blood cell. So water moves out of the cell through the process of osmosis, causing the cell to shrivel and shrink. Okay, that is the reason the answer is C. Next question is, which of the following describes water potential? Okay, uh, recall the chapter of topic of water potential. Okay, then you will say the answer is B. Why? Because water potential is a measure of the final energy of water in a solution. and it determines the direction of water movement. So water always moves from a region of higher concentration, okay, to a region of lower water potential, okay, from a region of higher water potential to a region of lower water potential. That is the reason the answer is B, tendency of a solution to lose or gain water. The next question is, osmosis is specifically the net movement of which molecule? Sugar, salt, water, amino acids. Okay. To answer this question, understand this process, osmosis. Okay. Then osmosis is the movement of which molecule? Sugar, salt, water, amino acids. The answer is very easy. That is the water. Because while diffusion refers to any particle, osmosis is a specific term strictly reserved for the movement of water molecules, but definitely it requires it is a movement across a partially permeable membrane. That is the difference between osmosis and diffusion. Diffusion does not involve any partially permeable membrane, but osmosis requires the involvement of partially permeable membrane. The next one is a partially permeable membrane is one that allows all substances to pass through, allows only large molecules to pass through, okay, allows water but limits the passage of some solutes, but blocks the movement of all liquids. Okay, definitely it does not allow all substances, because this is partially permeable membrane. Okay, this is partially permeable membrane. It means this word partially, it clearly hints that it limits the passage of some solutes. Okay, so the answer is C. It allows water but limits the passage of some solutes. Okay, here we have completed the MCQs session. Next one is matching column session. Okay, you will match the biological processes which are mentioned in column A, okay, and then you will match these with column B, that is the mechanisms A, B, C, diffusion, osmosis, or active transport. Through this you can easily assess yourself that to what extent you have understood these all three processes, which are diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. The first one is oxygen entering a red blood cell from the lungs. What is the process? This also I explained in the previous MCQs. Okay, the answer is diffusion, that is A. Okay, the second one is moving mineral ions into the root hair cells from dilute soil. Okay, from a dilute soil, then it means lower to higher concentration, because that is not water. We are talking about mineral ions. Okay, so here the answer will be C, that is active transport. Okay, because plants must pump minerals like nitrates into the roots against a concentration gradient. If there is against a concentration gradient, then definitely the answer is active transport, and here that is C. Okay, third question is water moving from a high water potential to a low water potential. What is this? Simply, that is the answer is B. Okay, that is the osmosis, because that is from a higher potential to a lower water potential. Okay, then if it is water potential, okay, then definitely you will answer that into B. The fourth question is what requires ATP energy from respiration? The answer is C, because ATP is required to process the process of active transport. Okay, so for question number 4, the answer is C. The answer number 5 is, question number 5 is carbon dioxide leaving a leaf through the stomata. What is that process? The answer is A, that is diffusion, because carbon dioxide moves out of the leaf from an area of higher concentration inside to a lower concentration, that is outside. Question number 6 is absorption of glucose in the small intestine against a gradient. Okay, against a gradient, answer is C. Because to ensure no energy is wasted, the small intestine pumps in the remaining glucose using energy, and energy is ATP, and ATP is required to move the molecules against the concentration gradient, and that process is active transport. Question number 7 is what causes a plant cell to become turgid when placed in a pure water? Okay, uh, turgid and pure water. The answer is B, because there is the involvement of water potential mechanics. So the answer is B, because pure water enters the vacuole via osmosis, creating the internal pressure which we call as turgidity. Okay. Question number 8 is what uses carrier proteins to move molecules across a membrane? Okay, carrier proteins, because this involves the carrier proteins, and carrier proteins are required for the process of active transport. The answer is C. Okay, because these carrier proteins are specialized protein gates which use energy to physically flip or rotate molecules across. Okay, so the next question is number 9. What is driven by random kinetic energy? Kinetic energy is involved in the movement of molecules. Okay, where it happens? It happens in the process of diffusion, and the answer will be A. Okay, answer will be A, because diffusion is as a passive transport process, and it relies entirely on the natural and constant movement of particles, and that is the kinetic energy. The answer, question number 10 is what is responsible for the bends, that is nitrogen bubbles in divers? Okay, that is a real world example. Okay, here the answer is again A, that is diffusion, because nitrogen gas dissolves into and out of the blood based on pressure driven concentration gradients. Okay, so here the answer will be A. Next we will we will discuss a few conceptual questions. Question number 1 is about the concept of the mystery of the salted eggplant. The case is a chef sprinkles salt over sliced eggplant, but after 10 minutes, the surface of the eggplant is covered with the droplets of water. The question is, using the term water potential, explain why the water appeared on the surface. Your answer will be that when salt is sprinkled on the eggplant, it dissolves in the surface moisture to create a highly concentrated solution. And this solution has a lower water potential because there is more amount of solutes. Okay, so that is the reason that this solution has a lower water potential than the cytoplasm inside the eggplant cells. So consequently, water moves out of the cells down a water potential gradient through the partially permeable membrane. Okay, through the process of osmosis, this water accumulates as droplets on the surface. It means that the salt solution has lower water potential and the cell solution has higher water potential. That is the reason water moves inside the cell to the outside of the cell through the process of osmosis. The next question is about the concept of winter roadside problem. This is also the concept of salt solution. Okay, the question is, in cold countries salt is spread on roads to melt ice. However, the grass growing at the edges of the road often turns brown and it dies by springtime. The question is, explain the biological reason for the death of the grass, specifically referencing the root hair cells. Your answer will be the salt from the road dissolves into the soil water, which significantly lowers the water potential of the soil. Okay, and the water potential of the soil becomes lower than the water potential of the sap in the root hair cells. So instead of water moving into the plant, water is drawn out of the root hair by the process of osmosis. This is the same concept which we discussed in the previous question of the eggplant. Okay, this is the same concept, that when there is a two concentration gradient of water potential, that higher water potential, lower water potential, then the water moves from a higher water potential to a region of lower water potential, and this process is called osmosis. Okay, and then when this happens, the plant cells lose their turgor pressure. Definitely when this water will come out from the cell turgor pressure will be lowered down, and that is the reason the cells become flaccid and the plant eventually wilts and dies from dehydration. Next question is about the concept of surface area to volume ratio. Okay, the case is two organisms, that is a small amoeba, that is a single celled organism, and a large fish which is a multicellular organism. Remember this concept, single celled and multicellular. Okay, they both organisms live in the same pond. The amoeba survives without lungs or gills, but the fish would die instantly if that does not have lungs or gills. Okay, the question is, using the concept of surface area to volume ratio, explain why the fish requires specialized gas exchange organs while amoeba does not. The answer is, the amoeba is a single-celled organism with a large surface area to volume ratio. So the distance from the cell membrane to the center of the cell is very short. So diffusion alone is fast enough to supply oxygen to the entire organism. But the fish has different case. Fish is a large multicellular organism with a small surface area to volume ratio. Its internal volume is too vast for oxygen to reach deep tissues by a simple diffusion from the skin. So it requires gills which provide a massive surface area and a circulatory system to transport gases efficiently. The last question is about the concept of a boiling leaf. Okay, if you boil a leaf in water for 5 minutes and then place it in a concentrated sugar solution, the cells do not undergo plasmolysis. What is plasmolysis? Plasmolysis is the vacuole does not shrink away from the wall. The question is, why does the dead leaf fail to show the normal signs of osmosis? This is a very technical question, okay? And sometimes the examiner asks you in your exams. The answer is, osmosis requires a living partially permeable membrane. Okay, osmosis, what it requires? It requires a living partially permeable membrane. So boiling the leaf, it denatures the proteins and disrupts the lipid bilayer within the cell membrane, making it freely permeable. Okay, if the cell membrane is dead, it means its control is no more. So it becomes, it is not now a partially permeable membrane. No, it has become a freely permeable membrane. It means the membrane can no longer act as a selective barrier, and sugar molecules can enter the cell as easily as water molecules because there is no barrier. Since no concentration imbalance can be maintained across the membrane, there will be no osmotic pressure which is generated to pull the vacuole away from the cell wall. That is the region that leaf does not undergo plasmolysis. Okay, now we have completed this question session. Okay, based on this topic, I have a quote for you which is for your motivation, that success is not a passive process. Okay, it does not happen by diffusion. To reach the highest peaks, you must apply active transport using your own energy to move against the gradient of challenges until you reach your goal. So remember it, work hard, and definitely you will be successful in your exams. And lastly, I say thank you to all for being a part of Dr. Wasif Academy. And if you have not yet subscribed to this channel, then do it, and also share these videos, these lectures with your fellows, with your classmates, and they will also become the part of this academy. And if it will grow, and definitely you will have great lectures ahead. Okay, I shall now see you in tomorrow lecture with a new chapter, that is chapter number 4. Okay, we will start it tomorrow. So till then, I say you best of luck, best wishes, and thank you. Goodbye.